Welcome to Narrowboat that James built. Hope you're well, thanks for joining me. I'm going about measuring up for where the fireplace and hearth are going to go. Lockgate, who are installing my Refleks diesel stove in the next few weeks, have said basically make sure the hearth is in place. So that's what I've got to do. I can fit the fireplace around it before or afterwards, but the hearth is my priority. So I'm just going about doing all the measurements and making sure it's all kind of compliant, and compliant is an interesting thing because these are governed slightly differently. Right, so installing a stove or a heater on a narrowboat, there's loads of rules to kind of comply with. On slow patrol, I've got a multi-fuel stove, and I think it's Sofitel who provide the guidance notes. There's loads of BSS requirements for it, which is the boat safety scheme, regarding safety and compliance. So it's kind of quite well dictated how you've got to install those. This though, which is the Refleks diesel stove, is slightly different because these are governed under diesel heaters, which is a fairly newish thing on narrowboats, and as a result of which the BSS don't have any strict rules or guidance regarding how these are installed. There's something about the fuel tank and there's something about whether it's connected or hardwired to mains electric, but other than that there ain't much rules. The advice I've been given by Lockgate is to basically install this in line with how you'd install a multi-fuel stove. So make sure there's adequate fireproofing. On Rob's one, he's got one of these, although it hasn't got a back boiler, which mine one will have. But his has got basically the actual stove doesn't get hot at all. It's a slightly different method of heating than the multi-fuel stoves, which basically heat up themselves and radiate heat, and you can blow heat down using a fan down the boat, but basically it just becomes a massive heat, hot lump of steel. These are different. This works on convection, so it draws cold air in, heats it and moves it around and cycles the air about. I've heard you don't even need to have a fan on top of this because it just works on sucking in the cold air. But as a result of which, the actual stove itself doesn't get very hot at all. The flue though does. So that's kind of where most of the guidance is around the flue distance between combustible materials. So that's what I've got to work out. On screen is an example of the stove I'm getting. That's in copper though, and the one I'm getting is in stainless steel. It's the 2000 kVT, which provides 4.2 kilowatts of heat, which is a heck of a lot. 2.3 on the water. It's got a hot plate, a fiddle rail, and a viewing window. And now I've got to go about working out exactly the position of this, so that when the angle of the flue, because it's going to be angled as opposed to straight down like in slow patrol, so I've got to work out where the base of the unit's going to be in relation to where the flue comes out and how that kind of corresponds to the boat. So that is what I'm going to do now. Right, something that is going to majorly help me is to make a template of the base of the stove, including the bit at the back for the flue. I'll make this template out of the cardboard. Right, I've marked out the that's the Refleks stove, that's the flue, and basically from the center of the flue to the center of the stove is 230 mil. From the center of the flue to the outside of the stove is 360 mil. So that's all right. Now the base of it though, it kind of flanges out, so the base is a little bit wider. So I'm going to kind of measure it out to there, cut that out. It's only around the base obviously, and then I've got to basically make sure that the gap between the flue and anything combustible is 6 inches. Okay, there we go. So there's a void of 6 inches there. So I'm going to cut around there, and then I can use that as my template. Right, here's my template. I'm just going to show you some footage I took from Rob's boat a couple of days ago when I went to look at how his Refleks stove has been mounted to his hearth and to how the fireplace was kind of created, or the surround, because he's got a curved one, which is obviously really nice, but I just wanted to see what kind of fireproofing there is behind it. Is that just the backing for that wall, isn't it? I think that the fireplace is made up of that material there, which feels like hardboard or MDF, 3mm MDF maybe, and then you've got the cement board. Yeah. Can you see that? Yeah. And I reckon that ply, because that's birch ply, that I reckon is just your bulkhead.
Yeah, I reckon that's...
And so it's got to be 6 inches minimum from a combustible. So obviously that's not combustible. And I guess if that's all hollow behind there, which it sounds like it is, then I guess there's nothing to burn behind there, is there? There's nothing there.
No.
That's your insulation I can see there.
Yeah. And spider's web.
And a bit of a spider's web. Does that bit of granite come out?
That's glass.
Glass. Does that come out? No.
No.
Okay, that's good to know.
I'm wondering if it'd be interesting to see when yours comes in.
Right, here's my template. I could reduce the gap, but because the rules are 6 inches from anything combustible. So if I use some CS board, calcium silicate board on this wall and on this wall here of the galley, then I could reduce that because obviously that's non-combustible. But the other thing is there's a hot plate here in the middle of the stove, and that is, by its definition of its name, pretty hot. The other thing is, because it works on convection, it draws cold air in. So you're going to want the stove quite low down, because obviously there's more cold air lower down. And I don't want it to sit proud of the 90 centimetre worktop here. So this here is 70 centimetres, and I'm thinking that's about right for the top of the stove, that height there, because that gives 20 centimetres to the top of the work surface, and therefore, because of the height of the stove, that means the hearth needs to be 10 centimetres high. And then the stove is basically from there to there. So now I've got the hot plate in the right position in terms of kind of height-wise. I don't want that anywhere near anything combustible. But it doesn't need to be that far away, but I'll look at that in a sec. The other thing to bear in mind is that on the back of the stove is the outlet for the flue, and basically at a 75-degree angle from the flue is where the outlet is for the hot water, that's the back boiler. So I'm not going to want that on display, and that's here, right? So if I had it like that, then there's not enough gap there, and obviously the hot plate will be probably a little bit too close to the wall there. Obviously that wall's angled. I don't really want to see the gubbins going into the flue either, and I've got the diesel line to come in to obviously feed it, and I've got the return and flow from the boiler. So there's a bit of gubbins to go on that, and I don't really want that visible from when you walk round here or when you're sitting at the dinette. So I'm kind of thinking if I had it at an angle there of 45 degrees, then that would also mean that I could basically make a square fireplace, which would make my life a damn sight easier. I was thinking about a curved one, but it's only going to have to take out that little curve there at the back, and the amount of grief that will ensue, I can't really be bothered. So I'm thinking a square fireplace and then a curved half, half around there will probably be the right way to go. And then if it was in that position, then that means it's about like that. Yeah, that's a nice gap between the wall. What's that, 25 centimetres between the hot plate and the wall. I reckon that's the position, which means therefore that the hearth, which I need to build now, can have a nice curve to it, straight edge there, and then this doesn't have to be, unlike again on the BSS rules for a multi-fuel stove, there doesn't need to be any hearth requirements for this. It basically just needs to be a platform. This does not get hot in the slightest. In fact, this is all still quite cold to touch, even when the thing's baking hot. So then there's hardly any requirements. The only requirement is that the stove is mounted securely to the hearth. So I don't need to make it out of stone or anything like that. I think I'm probably just going to make it out of timber and then maybe just tile it or something. I could even just put some kind of veneer on it or whatever. And then, yeah, going to curve a bit round, but it doesn't need to be a lip because there's no coal to come out, so it can really kind of go up to that level there, in which case that is not coming out that far, is it? That's 50 by 50. Perfect. My fireplace on slow patrol is 70 by 70, so this is a nice bit smaller. Good. Right, I think I found a piece chunky enough and big enough that I can make the hearth out of. I'm going to use the circular saw to take out most of it and then go through it with my jigsaw, because this won't get through it. On its biggest setting, I think I only get 25mm on this. That's the best way to check if it's square, is to measure the diagonals. Right, let's bang on. Now I need to take off a corner, which I think I might just do all that with the jigsaw. Right, I've got to mark that up first. Right, this is the same diameter as the stove, so I've marked out a line there, and the stove will sit basically like that inside there. One bit of the fireplace will go off down there, the other piece down there. Right, now I can cut out that curve. Right, I got some 2.5 by 1.5 CLS here. I'm just going to make some supports for the hearth. Right, I think this is it. So I need a gap down there for some pipes. There's going to be no pipes going from there beyond this. Basically, there's nothing up there apart from radiators, and the radiators come from this. So there'll be pipe work coming out the back of this and then feeding in that void there. So I need to have a void there. The other thing I need to do is make sure that underneath this, certainly here, I can access, so I can fix the Refleks stove to this. I presume you just mount it straight through into that, but that's going to need to be clear on the underneath. And then round the back here is where diesel lines will come in. So I don't think it needs a return and flow. I think it just needs one line in. I'm not sure. I'll check with Lockgate about that. And again, there'll be the only pipes going through there is going to be for the hot water feed from the Refleks stove. So I'm going to screw them to the floor, screw that to that, and then that should be sufficient for this first part of the install. Right, now the fireplace is here. One thing I was going to do is put the fridge up there, but because basically I was going to swap the fridges from this boat and slow patrol, because the small fridge in slow patrol fits in that gap there without having to raise the step up. But I can always get a small freezer actually to go in there, which would be quite useful because the fridge on this boat hasn't got one. But I was thinking, because I'm not going to have the oven there now, the oven's going to be over there. I was thinking I wonder if the fridge could be here, because that'd be quite a good space for it actually. So I'm going to see if that fridge fits in that gap, and I'm going to see if it works, because do you remember when I brought the boat down, the fridge was kind of in a bit of a bad state. So I'm going to test that. This can't have just been from a transportation. I mean, the bloody fridge has fallen down. It can't be. That's smashed. That's all smashed. Yeah, that will. That'll fit in there nicely, actually. Don't know if that works though. Is that going to be a really annoying place for a fridge? Thing up there, sink there, oven there, fridge. Oh yeah, no, that kind of works. It opens on the right. Happy days. No. Could be there. Is that going to be there? Right. Before I do that though, I should see if the thing even works. It's got two sets of cables coming out of it. One, it says on the back that it's 12 and 24 volt. So basically it means if you've got a 24 volt system, this fridge should work. Obviously I've got a 12 volt system, but I don't know why it's got two sets of cables. You wouldn't have one for 12 and one for 24. So I don't really know. And this one is like speaker cable, not even that. This must have been some kind of sensor maybe. What would that be for? God knows, right. But there's a half decent cable there. So I'm going to connect that up to a power source and see if it works. So this is the fridge. It's an Inlander, which is quite a popular brand for narrowboats. But this is my quandary. Looks like there's a buzz bar down there, but this little cable here is that one and that one there. But the two, obviously the 12 volt ones are those two there. So I'm not really sure. I'm not going to do anything with that one. I'm just going to put some connections on this one using some Wagos and power it up. These Wagos do make life easy. Right, so I'm not going to connect that one in at the moment. Right, cigarette lighter's on. Ah, it's working. I can hear the compression going. What's it pulling? 60, 70, blimey. Obviously it's just getting going, so I guess, but it works. Let's see if the light's on. Yes. Oh. Random. Okay. Oh, blimey, it needs a bit of a clean, but compared to, well, considering the condition it was in when it arrived, I'm amazed that works. Cool. Right, the compressor, it only took about 5 minutes. The compressor's turned off, and interestingly, when I open the door and the light turns on, it starts to draw a little bit out of that, only 10 watts. But on the fridge on slow patrol, when the light's on and the door's open, it's still drawing nothing. But I can feel it's getting down to temperature. Actually, this is a much better fridge than the one on slow patrol, in fairness. So I'm glad this works. Right, I'm going to let this run for a while, get it down to temperature and see if the compressor turns off, because the one on slow patrol kind of kicks in maybe once every couple of hours just to maintain the low temperature. So I just want to kind of check the efficiency of this fridge before I consider the install permanently. Right, I've mocked this up now a little bit more accurately, despite the things I'm using to mock it up with. That is at a height of 430, which is where the flue comes out from the height from the hearth. So from that angle, and it's pretty much in the right spot as well, it's at least 6 inches from anything combustible there and from the angle on the wall. And that's pretty much what it will look like from the galley. Obviously the cupboard will be like, or the work surface will be eclipsing it, so all you'll see is the flue coming up, which, as I said, are really attractive, so that'd be pretty cool. From this angle, that also still works, that's all right. So yeah, it's got to be obviously square going up that way, so I just need to obviously trim out quite a bit of stuff up here on the ceiling, but that's pretty much it in terms of proportions. So I reckon I got the hearth right. I can shimmy it forward a little bit, that'll be fine. Right, well, the fridge certainly works. My Diet Cokes are freezing cold, and I've spotted that this is made by Amica, which is a Polish make, and obviously sold under license in Britain by Inlander. But yeah, this is really good. I still don't know how the dial works. I don't know where I presume it's that marker there, but I never know if cold is if one's the coldest or if 7's the coldest, so I just kind of keep it in the middle. But that is working perfectly, which means I can clean it up and then look to do the full install on that one. I think actually it might be on the angle there. I'm not too sure. It really depends. I've got to bring the washing machine down, put that into place, and make sure that the sink is still kind of in the middle of the window. And then I've got to put that skin fitting in there. I've got 2 foot to play with from the gunnel to the water line, but it's got to be kind of around there. Hopefully lower than the bottom part of the sink. So I haven't got a busting amount of room to play with, and I don't really want to have a whale gulper because that is also going to be sharing the one from the dishwasher, which means a whale gulp will be going on for ages. So that is something I need to think about, the positioning of that, as is the positioning of the fridge. But anyway, I'll work it all out. Good, that's perfect. Oh yes, takes my weight, that'll take the weight off the stove, no problem. I'm glad I managed to find a reason to repurpose this kitchen worktop, because it'd have been a shame to discard it all. There's loads of it, although not enough for my kitchen. So yeah, I'm glad I found a reason to use it. I've got to get my sander out and sort out that curve, and then prepare the worktop, or prepare the surface to go on with something like this, which is a just a veneer, which can be glued to that, cut round there, put some trim round it, and that looked really nice. Except this is the wrong stuff. I was hoping it was glossy and speckled, and it's not. It's matte and pretty plain, but you get the idea. I'll get myself some more of that. I will send this to Paul and double check from Lockgate, and just double check that he's kind of satisfied with the fire, with the with the hearth. I think he will be, because you can access under there to get the mounting brackets for the diesel stove. There's plenty of room at the back for the flue, and to the side for the pipe work for the hot water. So I think that's all pretty fine. But as I said, I'll double check with him before he comes out and puts the full install in. And I think I might do some fire retardant foam on the upper walls here, even though it's more than 6 inches away. Still, I'd rather be a bit safe than sorry. And then I need to build once Paul's given me the okay on this, I'll build up the galley, this side of the galley here. So I've got the backing here, so it'll be much easier for the install then, because then we can put pipes and everything through it. And then feed the rads up there. So there's going to be the heated towel rail, the radiator in the bow bedroom, and the calorifier. So it's going to feed those 3 hot water things. Yeah, that should be it. And then a header tank in the cupboard right at the top, above the gunnels. So I'll double check with Paul that he's happy with this. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.